Thank you very much. Well, it's a great pleasure to be with you today to consider the future of logistics. And what I want to do is to create an informal conversation about the future. And I'm going to do that for the next 45 to 50 minutes, after which the floor is yours. Because what's important is not my views of the future, it's your view of the future. And I'm going to share with you some personal insights. I don't necessarily believe everything I'm going to say. My purpose is to provoke us to think freshly. I work with many of the boards and senior teams of the largest multinationals. It could be, and with their clients as well. It could be a Google one day, Microsoft the next, Hewlett-Packard, ExxonMobil, BP, Shell, DHL, Fedex, whoever. And with every company, there is the same issue. And it is perhaps one of the greatest risks in any institution. And what is the risk? The risk is that we find ourselves surrounded by people who have been in the same industry for quite a while, and we begin to develop what I call institutional blindness. It's a possibility. Can you put your hands up if you have been inside this community for more than 3 years? More than 3 years. Okay. More than 5 years. More than 7 years. And more than 10 years. Okay. Now, most psychologists would say that when we change job, we move from one organization to another, it's often we get our sharpest understanding, our sharpest insight in the first 6 weeks. And then after that, we gradually become part of the system. Okay, so what I'm aiming to do as someone who is outside of your industry is to try to provoke some fresh thinking. I'm not in your industry. You know much more about it than I do. So, but here goes. And, you know, the future is full of uncertainties. And for EasyJet or for DHL, you may think that actually it's just unlucky. And the fact is that there's a lot of things around in our world that are very unlikely things. You think, if that was to happen to us, it would be so unlikely. It's so unlikely that we don't even consider it. But there are hundreds of such wild cards inside your business. In fact, in every one of your big clients, every one of your multinational giants that you handle the supply chain for, in every one of them, there are wild cards. In fact, I can tell you that my clients would consider DHL to be a wild card. Because one of their risks is that something will happen one day and something starts to go wrong, perhaps with your computer systems or your communication, or something happens. And you might say, oh, it would never happen. Not once in 100 years. Well, that's a wild card risk. 1% per risk, 1% per year risk is a wild card risk. But the trouble is, for my clients, and for you too, there are hundreds of these risks, which means that the chances of one of these things happening to them in a 3-month period is actually quite high. When we think about the subprime crisis, for example, that is a typical wild card risk. It was a relatively low probability event, apparently according to the banks, but it started to go wrong. In fact, I can tell you that there are hundreds of other highly complex financial instruments that have been created, particularly connected with hedge funds, which could also have gone off, and which still could. So we live in a world which is uncertain. And as we have seen recently, when events happen in one area of the economy, they trigger apparently unrelated consequences elsewhere. And this means we have to have a different way of managing our future. The old days, we used to have one strategy. The days of having one strategy for Deutsche Post or DHL is coming to an end. Why? Because the world changes faster than you can develop a strategy. It changes faster than you can even hold a board meeting. So what it means is that we are required to have a main strategy, a main plan, but we have plan A, we have plan B, we have plan C as well. And you know how quickly these things can happen in terms of a new merger or an acquisition or whatever. So SARS and bird flu are other examples of potentially disruptive events which come crashing in and affect us, especially in logistics and distribution. And yet, every wild card is an unexpected sales opportunity somewhere for someone who's well prepared, as well as being a logistical challenge. It is that in a web world, we are under pressure to act even faster. You know, I was staying in New York about just before Christmas, and I was staying in a high-rise tower which was 4,322 stories high and only had 2 lifts, at least only 2 that worked. I was late, and I was standing by the lift, and the lift button was lit, and there were 10 people standing there watching their watches. It's 5 minutes past 8, and I'm wondering what is going to happen. Now, I confess to you, at that moment, I was tempted to do something totally crazy. I was actually tempted for a moment to press that lift button more than once. I can see from 1 or 2 of you laughing that you might have been tempted to do the same thing. I'm sure you have never, ever done such a crazy thing. Or perhaps you have. Who here has pressed a lift button more than once? My friends, you know, I was in Dallas, Texas in November. I was talking with 850 airline pilots, and I asked them another question. I said, you seem an interesting group. Tell me something. I'm very interested in airline pilots because I fly a lot in planes. I said, tell me, I need to know how you think. Put your hand up if not only did you press the button, but you also talk to the lift. Come on, baby, it's time to come. 95%, this is honestly true, 95% of the airline pilots of America talk to the lifts when they want them to come. I asked another question. I started to get worried. I really started to worry at this point. Because, of course, my next question is, put your hands up if you talk to your plane. And you know what? They all do. And if we remember nothing else about the future than this, remember that when, you see, you are very rational people. You are logical. You are the intellectual giants in distribution, logistics, and supply chain management, in the post office and communications and banking and financial services. You, study. Listen, what we have learned about each other is that when we are under pressure, we can behave totally irrationally. And if it's true of you, it's true of the driver of your truck, it's true of the pilot on the plane. Did you know that irrational acts are one of the main causes of airline accidents? It's not technical failure. Irrational acts are one of the main causes of companies going bust. Irrational acts are one of the main causes of all kinds of systems breaking down. So if we understand something about the future, it's that the future is not about the strategy. It's not simply about the Excel spreadsheet numbers. It's not about the logical analysis of competitor activity. It is about the fact that there is something else operating in the world behind the scenes, and that thing is immersion. And we find it hard to talk about it. I work a lot with banks. I tell you, banks find this very tough. I work with lawyers and accountants. They hate this. But it's true. I work with technology companies like Nokia. Nokia knows that the future of their technology is not bytes and bits and geeks and chips. It's emotion. It's passion. It's connecting with what will be exciting for your 15-year-old son to earn. And it's that which will decide which is a make or break technology. And you see it in just about every area. We see it in the reaction at the moment to the Chinese government starting to buy big chunks of American industry, for sovereign wealth funds starting to use these trillions of dollars to buy up chunks of Swiss banks. We see it in all kinds of other areas as well. That's why we don't believe market research. I mean, market research can't tell you the future, Market research simply tells you what your customers told you yesterday about how they think they will behave tomorrow, and they're usually wrong. And I can give you hundreds of examples of that. Talking of customers, you could say that one of the main things that is going on in terms of commercial use of the post office is customer relationship management in one way or another. Mail shots, brochures, packages, rather than just delivery of product. And here there is a huge challenge for the future, and I'm interested in your view of the future of the post office here in Germany. Because the marketplace is getting more crowded. It's true that as the volumes of mail have kept going surprisingly well, haven't they? Mainly because of huge mail shots, sales literature. And that has replaced a lot of the ordinary stuff which has just melted away, the stuff that's gone on to email. But there is a challenge here, because the average consumer in Europe is exposed now to 30,000 brand names a month, and up to $1 billion of advertising will have passed your eyes in the last 30 days alone. And the market, quite frankly, as I'm sure you agree, is getting saturated. Put your hands up if you regularly throw away most of the advertising literature that comes in through your door. Put your hands up if that advertising literature actually makes you annoyed. Put your hands up if you are part of a distribution service which delivers it. What have you told me? What you told me is that that is a sector of business that you're not sure you believe in anymore, right? Is that what you've told me? What you said is this is a section of business that you think that there is a fundamental challenge with that section of business. What you're telling me is that you've got worries about the environmental implications, about the waste of time and energy, about whether it's the right thing to do, and so on. But yet people continue to do it. And the reason is because, of course, when it's well done, when it's done intelligently, the response is fantastic. Put your hands up if you have recently responded to a well-targeted mail shot from someone that you know and love, a company you know and love. It's part of your list. You get it through the door, you open it straight away because you know there's something in there for you that will be customized to you, it's well-designed, and you respond to it quickly. Put your hands up if you have benefit from that kind of thing. I do. For me, it's the British Airways mail shot. It's very clever. There's stuff which comes through online, but actually they do some very nice stuff in a brochure. And I'll open it, tear it open straight away, I'll read it for 30 seconds and I bin it. It's true, it doesn't stay very long, but actually it is one of the things I do open, and it is part of my relationship with them. And I bought things from it. But there's an awful lot of stuff that is wasted. And I think that, the direct mail industry, I talk a lot with direct marketers, and I've been saying this, that we need to get it right. Because if the industry doesn't improve what they do, then what will happen is I will throw away good stuff with the bad. I have actually thrown away a contract worth tens of thousands of dollars mixed up with junk mail. Has anybody else done something like that? You've thrown away something really important because, for heaven's sake, you come back from vacation, there's this much junk mail, you just threw away the lot and you threw away something important. Anybody else done that? Okay. It's a challenge. So what happens is, if the advertising industry improves, if they all improve, then we all start opening the mail more often. If they don't, if 90% of the mail shots are last century mail shots, then what happens is the effectiveness of the last 10%, the really good, the genius one, tremendous one, beautifully designed, customized for you personally, but you never even opened it because it was muddled up with the rest. So if I was in charge of a national post office, I would be wanting to bring together conferences with all the direct marketers in Germany right now. And I'd be saying, let's do it better. I'm sure you do these things already. Let's do it better. Let's improve it. Let's knock out the stuff which actually we are embarrassed to deliver. Really. And you should be embarrassed to produce. And let's get the standards right so that every piece of paper really matters. which will benefit everyone, and it will actually work for us as well as for you in the long run. It's not just for in terms of the marketing success. And what is the future anyway of paper in an online world? I happen to believe that paper has a great future. Can anybody tell me any reason why I believe that? I'm an author, okay? You're going to receive a book in a moment. It's signed by me. Okay, why do I believe in paper? Why do I believe that books are going to survive? What do you think? Not just books, but other printed forms. I believe they are a medium of the future. Why? That should be good news for you if you're in the business of delivering bits of paper. Why, as a futurist, do I believe in paper so much? Something in your hand that's concrete? Yes, that's true. I hope it means something more to you to have a physical book, which I have signed something in for you. Okay. In emotional connection, yes, that's true. Yes, some other reasons. You don't need a battery for your BlackBerry, that's absolutely right. Can we follow that on? I'm a physician, which is another clue. What about any medically related things that might be impacting on paper? Low electrosmog, yes, can we follow through? There's no electrosmog, yes, more than that actually. Yeah, there's no electromagnetic radiation, but other things are issues. I'll tell you something. When you're listening to me right now, you are listening at 112K. If you know bandwidth, you know that an ordinary phone line runs it up to 56K, and your broadband at home runs at 10 megabits per second or 20 or something. Your ears can hear only 112,000 characters of information each second. It's pathetic. Your eyes can bandwidth. So here's an amazing fact. If you pick up a copy of a huge newspaper and you put it on the desk, you can read that whole newspaper in how many seconds? If you were in a hurry and you thought there was an article about DHL in there or about a competitor, how long will it take you to read the whole of that newspaper and be sure that you've seen it or not seen it? 30 seconds. And how much of the paper will you have read in that time, do you think, as you went? Quite a lot. You'll say, hey, by the way, did you see what the Deutsche Bank said yesterday? And our chairman was quoted yesterday morning, and by the way, there's a funny old story, and you got all of that in about 60 seconds. You can read the equivalent of an entire book out of a newspaper in about 2 or 3 minutes, because you are using your 3,000 terabits of data, and it just goes zoom, straight in. And I promise you, you can read one of my books in 10 minutes. Okay? I'll tell you how. You start at the middle and you work out, backwards and forwards, until it's finished. And you go for the little headlines. I've written a little sub-headline on each page so you can read the whole book very quickly. And you can scan it and you'll find the bits that you want. And you'll go back and read another chapter again another time. That's why paper is so important. On a computer screen, you only have, 1024 by 768 pixels or something like that. It's ridiculous. Your eyes see all this data, but the computer screen gives you a tiny amount of information compared to the printed page. You cannot, I can produce for you a beautiful travel catalogue of holidays, of cruises around the Mediterranean. You can never, ever show me something as effective online in terms of the color, the detail, and the speed at which you can read it. So paper survives, which is very good news for you. And it doesn't matter whether it's DHL, one client in Hong Kong DHLing to Frankfurt, or it might be the dear old post office, Deutsche Post, from Cologne to Cologne. But paper does matter in the online world, so long as it has the quality that justifies it. If you find it annoying when you dial the electricity company or the phone company, and they say, press 1 for accounts, press 2 for customer service, press 3 for... Put your hands up if you hate it. Right. Okay. Now, here's another question. Put your hands up if you have an automatic answering system for your clients. You're using an automatic answer system of any kind for your clients. Put your hands up. That's right, don't be embarrassed. You're only on video, but it doesn't matter. I want to see. I'm just saying, it's an example of how, again, we have this double think that, I work with telco companies, telecom companies. They all have these systems, but they all hate them. So I say to them, why is it? I said, you told me that anybody who installs such a system should be a criminal and put in prison. That my time is more important than their time, right? And then we use them ourselves. So what happens is, it's an example of institutional blindness. We land up installing systems which we hate when we are a customer, but we love when we are selling something. Another example of institutional blindness, for those of us who, like me, who are getting very old, is restaurant menus. Put your hands up. Actually, it probably only applies to about one person here, apart from me, looking around, because you're quite young. Put your hands up if you need glasses to read a restaurant menu by candlelight. Isn't this a strange thing? Listen, you know that on current trends, there are so few young people in Germany. You know that in some parts of Germany, there are only half the number of school children than there were 10 years ago. You know that. And you know the reason why. Which is that, as in many families in my country, the average number of children per couple is about one and a bit. Which means that the population of Germany will halve in every generation. And because you either have to make babies or you have to import them from somewhere else. And my country is busy importing them because we've completely forgotten how to make them. That's why we are importing. It's true, we have a national emergency in my country. It's unofficial, but that's why we have just sucked in, with a big vacuum cleaner, 1 million new people into my country in the last 36 months. Because we've completely forgotten how to make babies, and we are becoming as extinct as the dinosaurs. That's the truth. And the only people with any money in my country, well, actually, the only people with any money in Germany are those over the age of 50. I don't know why anybody in Germany bothers to sell to anyone under the age of 50. 1, they haven't got any money. 2, there aren't any of them. So you know that, as in London, that most of the people with most of the money to eat out in restaurants are over the age of 50, right? It's the target market for any restaurant that's any good, correct? Okay. And you go, if you don't believe me, just go around and look for the grey hairs or no hairs, okay? In fact, it's such a problem that any restaurant that has open-air seating has to have hats for everyone, because all the men don't have any hair anymore. But the fact is this, that despite the fact that the target market in Cologne and Frankfurt and Bonn for top quality meals in restaurants is those over the age of 50, the print of the menu is so minute that only a 12-year-old can read it without special technology. And why is this? Because of institutional blindness. Because our society hasn't quite understood that when you ask 20-year-old designers to design restaurant menus, they design restaurant menus all white paper. It's amazing, so much white paper. They say, it's part of the fashion. I say, why do you have a menu which is 99% white and tiny little print? They say, oh, you are so last century. I can't understand it. I say, my friend, you have made it impossible. This is your main selling document. This is your main marketing document, is your menu, and you've made it impossible for most of your customers to read it. Crazy, isn't it? I gave a lecture to Philips the other day, and I thought I had no Philips technology in our house. And then I suddenly realized, with a shock, thank God I did. The day before, I suddenly realized, to my surprise and delight, that I had been shaving my face using a Philips razor for the last 3 years. I didn't know because the Philips logo is so tiny on the razor that I need my glasses on in the shower or the bathroom to read it. Again, how crazy can you be? So I'm just saying here are examples of how it is easy to get out of touch with customers. And the virtual companies grow quickly. You know all about the virtual conveyor belts and the just-in-time. You are world experts on all this stuff. The total integration of the supply chain and so on. And we can expect phenomenal growth in all of these areas. And the good news for you is that the competition isn't going to be too difficult. Why? Because it's so hard for someone to break into your area. You found that when you tried to make a big move into America. It's tough. Why? Because you have to have so much infrastructure to compete. The good news is that it is unlikely that a new global courier service will come out of India and invade the European Union in the next 5 years. You hope. What's more likely is that you will battle it out with Fedex and the rest. So the good news is, I say, that you have a huge chunk of the global market and it's relatively secure, but we still have big gaps in what consumers actually need. Let me give you another example. I left my power supply for my main computer, like this one, at a speaking engagement. And I speak in several countries a week sometimes, and I was desperate. I had another computer, but I really needed a new power supply. And I had 2.5 hours before I left for the airport again. And you would think, wouldn't you, that using Google and all of your logistics, that you and I together would manage to get to my home quickly a power supply. What did I do? Well, it's up here. I found the product online, made in America. Next, I made 6 phone calls. The wholesaler wouldn't talk to me. He said, oh, we've got hundreds, but I can't talk to you. Sorry, click. I phoned him back again. You have got to tell me where I can buy it. Oh, go online. No. Tell me, who has it in stock now? Well, that's not our job. It's all online. Please. Eventually, he gives me some phone numbers. I then finally get through to one retailer. The retailer says, you have to put it in an email to us. In an online world, he said, we only do online ordering. So I'm backwards and forwards. There were 3 emails. Then he said he wouldn't accept a credit card transaction. And my PayPal account had no money in it. So then I had to load up my PayPal account. And then the biggest nightmare of all, how on earth in an online world am I going to get the product fast enough? You see, the online world is so slow. People tell me 1 mouse click and it all happens. It's rubbish. The only way to get a product is to get in the car and go and get it. You know that, right? If you want milk, go and get it. If you want a newspaper, go and get it. If you want flowers, go and get it. Or wait. And how long will I have to wait? A whole 24 hours at least. Probably 36. Maybe 72. I've got 2.5 hours, so how did I do it? Any ideas? How on earth did I do it? Well, I did it the old-fashioned way. I phoned a taxi. Taxis are better than couriers because they're human beings. I phoned up a taxi and I said, okay, this is an emergency. Go to this name and address, collect the product, bring it back here, and I'll pay you lots of cash. Trouble was, taxi arrived at my home 5 minutes after I had to leave for the airport. Taxi then chases me all the way down the motorway to the airport, but I'm off onto my flight. He gets stuck behind traffic and the power supply is gone. So for me, that was a frustrating example of how the last century world of courier has not caught up at all with the online world of tomorrow. And you know that in online sales, you lose 30%. Every one of your clients loses 30% of their market share, 30% of sales in 30 seconds of waiting for a page to load. That's yesterday. You tell me tomorrow. In tomorrow's world, you will lose 30% of your sales with a 10-second wait. Wow. That's 10-second wait at any point for a page to load, for the credit card transaction to be confirmed, for someone to pick up the phone when you said, please speak to an operator, for the product to be delivered to your door in 72 hours. 10-second wait. We're in a 10-second world, and what we need is a 10-second courier service. That's a courier service which says this product will be back to you with a 3-hour promise. Can we do it? We have to do it. It's the future. You do it already. Every pharmaceutical company does it. Every chemist has a 3-hour promise. Why? You go in, you see your doctor at 9:30. You come out at 10:30. You need your medicines by 2 or you will die. Maybe I exaggerate, but you will get them by 2. If you're very unlucky, you will have to come back at 3 o'clock. But the medicines will be there. And they will come by courier through a special automated delivery system from the wholesaler to that chemist. It's a beautiful world. It works every single time. And if you go in at 6 o'clock in the evening, it'll be there 9 o'clock in the morning. Fantastic. And that's what I want. I want the high street pharma service in my doorstep for every product that I can possibly get. That for me is the gold standard now. It's 6 p.m. ordering for 10 a.m. delivery across the whole of the European Union. Can we do it? Can we do it? I don't mean can we do it now. Can it be done? Sure. Is there a market for it? You bet. You bet. This is a 10-second world. We cannot have a 10-second mouse click world and then have a delivery process which basically hasn't really changed for the last, 5 years? 10 years? And it should be anywhere in the same country. From here to the Bavarian Alps, no problem. 10 a.m. for 3 p.m. delivery, for sure, absolutely. By the way, the other group of people who do this superbly well are garages. Garages and chemists can get a part like that within hours, minutes sometimes, half an hour sometimes. And as I say, minicabs are much faster than anything else. It's the poor man's version of a courier service, and it works beautifully. And you know all about the online tracking systems and all these other things that should help us, but actually for me it's all to do with speed. And online sales need to deliver almost as fast as getting into the car. That's a problem for Tesco. In my country, they are the biggest online grocery delivery service. They're doing very well. But they have a major challenge, and I have this challenge for you. I don't know how to solve it, but how can we deal with the challenge of the last mile? I'm talking about Deutsche Post's challenge of getting it into the letterbox. I'm talking about DHL's challenge. I'm talking about Amazon's challenge. I'm talking about, it could be Tesco's challenge or Walmart's challenge. Okay, put your hands up if you think that at least 10 different companies have delivered stuff to your house in the last 3 months. Put your hands up. If at least 10 different companies have delivered stuff to your house in the last 3 months, put your hands up. Okay, what about 5? 5 different companies. And I'm including things like the newspaper, milk. No? Not anymore. Okay. Well, that's just part of the reason. Why is it not anymore? Because it's inconvenient for you? No, because the last mile, nobody could sort out the last mile. The funny thing is we've gone backwards. I remember the days, perhaps some of you are old enough to remember the days when a milkman came to my house and actually offered to bring bread and potatoes. That used to happen here? In fact, if you were very kind, he might even bring you an egg or two. Because he had a few things on his van, and whatever he thought he could get rid of, he'd have on his van. And it would be all kinds of stuff would come with him. So he was a very good last-mile delivery system, but it's all gone. Could we do it? Could we integrate all this stuff? Could we find, by the way, this is an issue of global importance in terms of global warming. It is immoral to have 10 delivery vans coming to my house on the same day. Maybe I'm exaggerating. It's immoral to have 3. And actually, you know, it's plain stupid for another reason. I'm not at home. I work, or I have a life, which means, actually it happened yesterday, Sheila and I, as we knew we were travelling, Sheila and I had a day off. But you know what? We wasted half the day hanging around at home, waiting for a courier service, who shall remain nameless, to turn up. They promised to turn up, to pick up a parcel for the US at 9:30 in the morning. Do you know what time they came? 2:30 in the afternoon. On the same day, we were waiting for other people to come and for this and that and the other delivery. And Oh my goodness. What if we could sort it out? So the whole of our world comes packaged out at 2 o'clock that day, and we know it, and we booked it ahead. Could it be done? Could we fix the last mile? Could you imagine that actually local government authorities or even national governments putting pressure on distribution networks to sort out that last mile? You should have the monopoly on the last mile. Do you? No? So it's becoming more difficult. But I think it's really important. I happen to think there's a huge market opportunity here if someone could crack it open. You might say, Patrick, it can't happen yet, because as you have seen, there's not enough people in this room who are regularly having lots of different things delivered. But that's yesterday. What about tomorrow? So, and then you've got the other challenge, of course, which is the, I can't pronounce this word, Garangenvertrag. Actually, you know what? I went through the presentation with the translators because they were really worried. They wanted the presentation sent in advance. I said, don't worry, there's only pictures. And then one word we've really struggled with all morning is how to translate this word into English. Actually, it's not the other way around. I can't find the word, but the idea of having a special place which is nominated the next door neighbour or the garden shed or the rabbit hutch or the chicken box, wherever it is, that someone can leave things when you're out. Very important, absolutely vital. So, logistics. Many of my clients, this has nothing to do with you, it's not your problem. Actually, it creates more business for you, so you should be glad about it. But many of my clients despair about the cost of returns. Getting the stuff out is easy, but getting it back is a nightmare. They tell me that 50% of their margin can be wiped just by dealing with their returns, even if they're only returning 1 in 20. And that's a major hassle, actually. And so every distribution company well, you know, everybody wants it to be one-way flow. And one of the big challenges is human beings, of course. It's either that they order the wrong size or the wrong color or the wrong stock or whatever, or it's something else. And it might be someone like, actually, I don't know where my friend's gone. But it might be someone like this chap, yes, who's just overwhelmed, and he just sent the wrong box. It's easy to do. But that, of course, is one of the big reasons for using technologies like RFID. And I'm hearing lots of mixed stories about it. You know, for years I've been saying that RFID technology is without doubt the biggest revolution in supply chain management that we've seen in the last decade, without a doubt. And it seemed to me a no-brainer that Walmart would force it on, and Pentagon would force it, and so on. And as you know, there's been all kinds of reactions to it in different places, but the cost savings are so monumental that, for as far as I'm concerned, whatever the difficulties Walmart's had in getting their supply chain sorted with RFID, it's only a matter of time. It has to happen. Every single product, including this bottle of water. I know there are logistical challenges and technical challenges depending on the packaging of actually reading these things, but it's going to happen. Why? Because of these fantastic warehouse efficiencies, the reduction of theft to almost zero, the ability to locate every product, the ability to stop 10% of all Mach 4 razor blades disappearing in theft. 10% of the stock. It's one of the highest value thefts in the market is a box of Mach 4 razor blades, which can come in at about 20 or 30,000 euros a shot. Yes, there are technical challenges, as I say. Yes, there are counterfeiting issues. Yes, there are security issues. There are privacy issues. But, as I say, it's an unstoppable momentum as far as I'm concerned. And I know that you are passionate about this technology and you use it a lot. And I guess the big issue is breaking out from the supply chain within the manufacturing and wholesale and putting it actually onto the Philadelphia cheese or the loaf of bread. And connected with that is another revolution, which you've seen here in Germany, especially with the Metro Group, as you well know, with the advent of the self-service. We're into the self-service era, which cuts cost, and barcodes are so last century. Who here has tried to do a self-service shop using barcoding? Was it an enjoyable experience? It's horrendous, ghastly. What we really want is an end to checkout, don't we? We just want to be able to walk into Walmart and say, oh, hello, sorry, I can't stop. Bye, thanks a lot. You just hit and run. You just take what you want, sorry, wherever they go. And why? Because the machine saw you coming down the street. And as you came in through the door, they know who you are. They know that you're in the store. They know exactly what you've got, and they know where to charge it. And if you know who I am, what I've got, and where to charge it, then you have a complete trading system. And the sheer genius of it is that it doesn't need to involve any bank. Because the next thing that happens is, bloop, SMS onto my mobile phone. Thanks for shopping at Metro today. You've just been charged €45.22. And here's the list. Wonderful. And if it's a much more expensive thing, if I've just bought a car, sorry, got to go, can't chat, then what do? It's the same technology. The only difference is biometrics, one thumbprint. So, SMS, press P to pay, thumbprint, wait 2 seconds, corrected, validated, authenticated, the car is yours, sir. Can it be done? Yes, it can, using today's technology. We're wiring up mobile communications. In fact, the really exciting thing about this from the banking point of view, well, actually it's scary if you're a bank, it's really exciting if you're a mobile phone company, is the amount of money involved. You know, if you were just to take half of the normal commission on a credit card transaction, which is, say, 3%, and a little bit of extra stuff as well, and you were to take that out of all the money which you spend every month on credit cards, bank cards, and everything else as well. Think about how much that is. And I promise you, it becomes much more than you spend on a mobile phone at the moment. What it means is that a phone company could afford to give you the mobile phone. You say, promise me, you have to cut up your American Express card, cut up your MasterCard and your Visa. It's gone, okay? If you promise that you will not use those cards anymore, except where biometrics isn't accepted. If you promise, then we promise you a free phone, free broadband, free satellite TV, free cable channels, free video conferencing system, free whatever you like, whatever else you want from us. Unlimited data, unlimited video calls, unlimited everything. Just please, please, please don't use American Express anymore. And the phone companies will make a big profit on that. So the days of phone companies selling phones is coming to an end. That's a crazy last century idea. Why would anyone want to sell you a phone? They'll give it to you, of course. And what's the value of the phone? It's simply a financial transaction machine, which has a few extras included for voice calls and email and personal life and all the rest, and a camera and a video. So how does that connect with self-service mass retail? How does it connect with RFID? Well, the phone has RFID inside it. The phone knows where it is. The products know where they are, or you know how to locate them. And it's all welded into this exciting place which you are going to drive for the future, which is a place where every product is fixed in time in a place on the world's surface. We know exactly where it is, what it's been bought, who's bought it, where it was manufactured, and where it's going. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Michelin tire that tells us automatically that it needs replacing and automatically orders a new one from a factory. It doesn't matter whether it's a biometrics of passports. And why do we need passports anymore? That's crazy too. All I need is a tag and a biometric, and that's it. Airline handling, of course, we're using RFID all over the place already in that. Shipping inspections and controls, it's the end of the bills of lading. Micromanagement of containers, because we can tag everything inside that container. I know if there's a lot of metal, it's hard. But nevertheless, the principle is there. Clinical monitoring, we can actually use RFIDs inside the body to monitor what's happening inside your head, inside your liver or your kidneys. Very exciting. So we can have remote diagnostics. And then, of course, you see, the future isn't about technology, it's about emotion. And so, of course, we then get an emotional reaction. And you may remember that there was a massive American boycott of Mach 3 razor blades a while back because there was a rumor, in fact it was true, perfectly true, that Gillette had tagged all their razor blades and they put them in a special assembly in the store, And if you removed a razor blade, the digital camera went gluck and sent a digital photograph to the security people, and the security people started following you around the store to make sure that you actually paid for that razor blade when you checked out. And because that caused a massive reaction about privacy, Gillette had, well, it got worse actually. Gillette was already in trouble in the US, and suddenly there was a boycott of all Mach 3 products across the whole of Australia, because there was a rumour that Gillette had started tagging all the Australian razor blades as well. They hadn't, but despite that, there was a ban on them. The public just walked away. And it wasn't just them. Old Benetton got hit. Benetton started to tag just one type of trousers. And because they built the tag into the trousers where it couldn't be seen, people were worried that they go down the street and someone with a scanner would say, like the shoes, but, you know, because you see the scanner, you see, you sell where they bought it, what price they paid. They like the shoes, but pity about the tie. And they said, well, I don't want that to happen. Or a woman's going down the street, and there's a man on the bus, and he's scanning her handbag. He can read everything inside her handbag because it's all got tags. And so as people started to worry about privacy and leakage of information, and then people like Walmart started to really worry about whether they'd ever be able to tag things that actually go out into the retail market. It's been a difficult area, and what's happened is clothing manufacturers and retailers like Marks and Spencer's in the UK have found a middle way. You put the tag on the price label gets torn off and thrown. But you see, other manufacturers don't want it to be thrown. And manufacturers of a plasma TV set, they want the tag inside the TV. And they want it so you can't remove it. They want it as part of the guarantee machine for the product. So it's a controversial area, but RFID is here to stay, and it will be a part of our lives. And we will have 100 billion of these grains of sand in our environment every single year. Every one of them will last up to 100 years in the environment. Every one of these grains of sand can receive data and send it. Every one of them doesn't need a battery because it sucks power out of the air. It's astonishing, this technology, and it will come. Sustainability at the moment, which is global warming. And remember that the future is not about emotion. It's not about facts, it's about emotion. It's about the emotional attachment and passion generated by this graph here. And whatever your views about it may be, the fact is that this graph will drive decisions in every business and every household for the next 35 years. This graph represents the greatest new business opportunity that this world has seen for the last 30 years. Inside this graph, there is $40 trillion of new business activity. Every task that is taken by society to deal with the problem of global warming will be taken by a business, almost all of them. Suppose the government in my country decides to build a huge dam across a tidal barrier, and so the tide coming in drives. Who's going to build it? A business. Suppose the government of Germany adds further price differentials to encourage people to put solar cells on their roofs. Who's going to provide them? A business. So business will be at the heart of the response to global warming, and a lot of it is connected with distribution and logistics. Why? Because that uses a lot of energy. Let's just come back to one of the areas where I've noticed it. Just look at the petrochemical industry. You ship a lot of product around, I guess, in this industry. Maybe not. Perhaps you should. The petrochemical industry at the moment uses hundreds of millions of kilometers a year of lorry driving. And I discovered an interesting fact. In Germany, in France, in Switzerland, and in London, and in the UK, are almost identical factories producing almost identical chemicals. And what we've got is a crazy situation in Europe. We've got, I know this because I went to lecture to the European Petrochemical Association, so this is where I found out about it. We've got a crazy situation. You've got the chemicals being transported from Germany, from one of your petrochemical giants, to the north of England to be turned into plastic bottles, which are empty. Even more scandalous, these empty plastic bottles are then shipped all the way down to Spain to be filled with product, and then they're sold in Turkey. Even more crazy, the craziest bit of all of this craziness from the logistics point of view is that on the way from Frankfurt all the way down the motorway and through the Channel Tunnel and out through to the north of England, that lorry passed 10 other lorries, zoom, at 200 kilometers per hour, zoom, one going 100 kilometers one way per hour, the other going 100 kilometers the other way per hour. And they passed each other on the same motorway carrying almost identical product, that in fact, if they'd suddenly stopped, said, "What have you got in that lorry?" "Well, same stuff." They could have just turned around and driven straight back home again. And we calculated with the European Petrochemical Association, I did a quick calculation, that if we had a product exchange operating across the EU, we could save 100 million kilometers a year of truck driving. That's a lot. If you think how congested our roads are, 10 million litres of fuel we'd save, and we'd save $35 million. And you know what the cost was of doing that? We worked it out. It would cost this is the Petrochemical Association thinks it would cost 100,000 euros a year to do it. It would require one person and a dog and a couple of computers and a web page. And basically, that's what it would be. 100,000 euros to take out 100 million kilometers of totally useless, immoral logistics traffic. And there are examples of those kinds of efficiencies which could happen all over the place within the European Union right now. And there are things to do with aviation, and there are big ethical questions that you're going to have to face, and you're already getting involved in them. Is it right to sell daffodils or tulips in Cologne that have been grown in Nairobi and brought in on this plane? Now, I can tell you, I believe it's a fine argument, and I know very, very respectable people that will say passionately that it is completely wrong, and for environmental reasons, and others that will say, if you talk to the Kenyan farmers and their economy, I would say passionately it's completely right. I'm interested in your opinion. Put your hands up if, on the whole, you feel uneasy, unhappy about moving plants from Kenya to Cologne on a plane. Put your hands up if you, on the whole, all things considered, in terms of the wider issues of social development and economic justice, that you think, on balance, it is right that this kind of trade is happening. My friends, you're showing that even within a logistics company, there is profound questions about the ethics of logistics in some industries. Actually, let me tell you that I am, funnily enough, maybe surprise you, on the side of the Kenyan farmer. I wonder how many tulips you think you could get on a plane. What do you think? 1,000? 50,000? I think you could get 1 million. They're pretty light. I don't know. I suspect you could get a lot if there's nothing else on that plane. If you did get 1 million tulips on one jet, then the amount of actual carbon cost per tulip is tiny. And what you'd say is, this is one of the highest value and most perishable products in the world. You know, one tulip is nearly €1. You know, you get a bunch of 10 for 10 euros. But at the peak, you know, just before Christmas or something like that. So it's a very high value product. So we could be carrying €1 million of product on this plane. Well, actually, that's not bad for a plane load. It might be quite an efficient way to transfer wealth from Cologne to Kenya, from people who earn 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 euros a year to people who only earn €2 a day. It's a difficult issue, and we can argue it many ways around. but I'm interested in the debate on it. In coming to that, you know that one of the fascinating things about the world is how efficient shipping still is. And I'm interested in how many ships you have. Big ships. I know you've got ones going up and down a few of the rivers, including the canals in Amsterdam. But I don't know whether you've got any container ships. Do you have container ships? It's interesting. You know, you know, of course, that I can ship a container, including the cost of putting the goods into the container, onto the ship, all the way from London to Dubai, unstocking, stripping that ship empty, reshuffling all the things, putting them on another ship in Dubai, and taking them all the way down to Shanghai, taking it off the ship, putting it onto the port, and lifting it onto a lorry. I can do all of that process for less than the cost of driving it from London to Southampton, which, in case you didn't know, is about 150 kilometers. Amazing. Put your hands up if you knew that. Part of the reason is because there are so many empty containers going back to China because no one's got anything to sell them, okay, except bits of dirty plastic. And in fact, China is sucking up 30% of all the plastic waste of Britain just because there's nothing else to put in the containers except rubbish. So that's one of the reasons. But actually, if we do it the other way, if we were to take the, if we were to come back from China, I'm relocated back home, and I fill the container with all my possessions in Shanghai, and I deliver it to the dock for the cost of putting on the boat, shuffling it in Dubai, all the way to Southampton, off the boat, I can only drive it 400 or 500 kilometers before it's already the same as coming from Shanghai to London. So what it means is that shipping is basically free. It's almost zero cost compared to just about any other form of transport. And it's the reason why we will continue to see very vigorous economic growth anywhere where you can get a container in by ship. It's the reason why containers are boom industry. It's the reason why the coastline of Britain is becoming dominated by more and more little docks. Why? Because it's the new postal service. It's free. A little container off there, go 10 miles down the road, into the dock again. Another 2 containers off there, take 2 on. 10 miles down the road, another little container port, another 2 off there, and so on, all the way down. Anything but avoiding road and rail, because road and rail is so incredibly expensive, and don't even think about the planes. Now you could say, yes, but Patrick, what about speed? And that's true. Speed is a big issue with this. It requires a huge amount of planning. But nevertheless, it eliminates a lot of cost and it blows out of the water a lot of oil consumption. So we're going to see a lot of discussion about this, about energy saving in logistics. And that's why you're going to hear so much more about shipping. And one of the key challenges will be the companies who are starting to say we will offset all our logistics costs. And already it's happening. Travel companies are doing it. I just travelled on Eurostar. Eurostar have just said every journey you do is carbon neutral. Every molecule of carbon released as a result of your Eurostar journey has been offset. We have made a tangible, real, physical saving of carbon release somewhere else in the system for every journey that's done on a Eurostar. You've got airlines starting to do it. KLM and Air France have just announced that they are offsetting all growth in their airline industry. They're growing 5% a year. Every extra flight they do, over and above the old flying, will be fully offset, which means that over half of all the airline travel will be offset within the next 8, 9, 10 or 11 years, something like that, probably. You've got other airlines that are already fully offsetting. It will not be long, I think, and you may be doing this already, perhaps I'm already out of date, but it will not be long, I think, before you'll find courier companies boasting, logistics companies boasting that every bit of energy used in the supply chain is offset, that we are completely energy neutral. And just to explain what I mean by offset, it means that as DHL works out that your lorries across Germany this year will use 1 million tons of carbon. Therefore, what you do is you invest in a project. Let's say it could be to dam up a small river in New Zealand to take 100,000 homes completely out of the carbon chain. So they'll be running on water power instead of the rest of the electricity. And they'll stop heating their homes with gas or oil and so on. And you've worked out that if you invest in that dam, as a result of your let's say, $2 million of investment, that tips it over the edge, the town can finance the rest. It becomes commercially viable then, because it was a loss-making thing. But those $2-3 million subsidy makes it happen, and then you can claim every watt of energy that comes out of that dam for the next 25 years as part of your offset. And so you'd go around next year and say, okay, what's the project next year? And so on, and you start building up carbon credits. That's what an offset is. And you'll see a lot more of it. So, in summary, and with this I finish, and it's over to you now, customers will expect more at a speed which is almost impossible to imagine right now, and we will deliver it to them.